Good evening mga kaibigan! Welcome to another episode of In My Toolbox. Of course, this is your weekly talk show exclusively on PHLV. Tonight mga kaibigan, we will delve into the realms of finance and business, exploring pertinent topics aimed at providing insights and guidance. Of course, it's crucial to emphasize that while we offer or share our expertise, we are not legal or tax advisors, okay? Therefore, the information shared here should not substitute to personal advice tailored to your specific circumstances. Always seek the counsel of qualified professionals before making any significant decisions. Of course, mga kaibigan, I'm again Enrico, an economist, financial expert, business consultant, and entrepreneur. Stay connected with me, mga kaibigan, through PHLV Radio or Facebook, or drop me an email at enrico.inmytoolbox@gmail.com. So mga kaibigan, let's embark on this journey. Alright mga kaibigan, by the way, if I may just tell you, right, we are now going to our 3rd year anniversary. Yoo-hoo! All right. So we are on a 3rd year of In My Toolbox. Thank you so much, Mr. Johan, for the trust and confidence on this show. Thank you so much for all the support. Mga kaibigan, parang kailan lang. All right. Okay. Speaking about that, the topic that we're going to be talking about today is the business of podcasting. The reason why I want to talk to you guys about this one, because some of my friends were asking, what is it, that you get out of podcasting, right? So the podcast, mga kaibigan, is, one of the question is it really a business? Because here, you create content, okay? So when you create content, because you are so passionate about your topic, and maybe this topic that you're passionate about is going to be the passion of your audience as well. So you capture an audience because of your passion, right? But nowadays, mga kaibigan, it's more than just a hobby already. Especially if you would want to make it as your business. Now, if it's a business, it will generate revenue. Of course, when it starts rolling out, there's going to be some expenses. And maybe you will be even hiring people as your employees. So therefore, there's going to be salaries. Okay? The other part of this one, you call yourself a content creator. Okay? So it's important to treat your content, of course, like a business. The hobby part is okay, but if you want to make sure, if you want to make it as a business, now, the content should always going to be connected to the business plan. That means you're establishing a legal business entity now on that level. Therefore, there's finance attached to it. You need to set budget. And of course, you need to pay taxes in the long run. Okay? So what I would want to talk to you guys about today is that business of podcasting and content creation. And maybe I can give you some ideas on how to get started if you're still thinking at this point, right? So the question here is, why create a business entity for your podcast? Or maybe, do you need to create a business entity for your podcast? Well, mga kaibigan, the purpose of a business entity for a podcast, or, I was telling you content creation, is for you to be able to establish legal and, of course, an organizational structure for you to be able to conduct your business activities. So this is more than a hobby already, because, of course, you start it as a hobby, but then again, it goes to the next level. You want to make it as a business. You want to start it correctly. Basically, we're talking about business entity. This is now the legal part, okay, of the business. And if you say that this is the legal part, you separate now yourself and the business. Okay? Now, this business or the entity that you created could actually make purchases. It can sign agreements. It can hire a team. It can own a property. The property, by the way, guys, can be physical or intellectual property. And because of that, there's value. You can even sell it already. So the question, let's go back to the question again. Do you need a business entity? No. In fact, we recommend, or maybe what I could say is experts recommend that you start generating content without even have a business entity. Maybe you're just trying to get yourself into the groove of producing your content, on a regular basis. And then once you do that, you're able to build an audience before you can actually go to the next level. Because when you talk about next level, as I was mentioning, there's a lot of legal hoops around it, right? Now, eventually, once you're ready, you will need now a business entity. And of course, when you becomes a business entity, there's going to be some benefits about it. You will need to talk about in your business about liability protection. So what is a liability protection on a podcast? Well, not only in a podcast, in any business, well, a business entity usually provides limited protection. Okay. What it means is that owners' personal assets should be or are generally protected from business debts and liabilities. That's the reason why I was talking about, guys, separation of business now and yourself, right? Because of these issues, the legal issues attached to it. Not only some legal issues, of course, financial obligations, where there's going to be some creditors attached to it eventually. Depends on how you're going to be running your business, but it could go as far as that these creditors can go after your personal assets. So you would want to make sure that you understand what liability protection is. Another thing that you would be considering is professionalism and credibility. Forming a business entity, it will now demonstrate, to potential sponsors or advertisers, or maybe even the people that you put as guests into your podcast, that they will think that you are actually serious in this venture and you're going to operate now in a very structured framework. That's the difference. Sometimes in a hobby and a business, that could be the main demarcation line between the two. Now, as a business, you have a structured framework already. Okay. Another thing is tax advantages. Depending on the jurisdiction and, of course, the chosen entity, the type of entity that you will be choosing, there can be some tax advantages that's going to be associated on how you're going to operate your podcast as a business entity. And it allows potential tax deduction related to business expenses, equipment, marketing, and other relevant costs that you'll be incurring when you start your podcasting on a business level. Now, brand protection. Business entities, well, you have to have your brand, because this will help protect, the business entity will help protect your brand name, your logo, and other intellectual property that you're going to be putting into your business. You will be registering your trademark and some copyrights, that this can actually safeguard your content and, of course, your business being unique. So, another thing that you could consider is partnerships and funding. A business entity which actually provides a formal framework to manage partnerships and equity arrangements. So, this will actually facilitate, you can facilitate raising funds. You can actually go into sponsorship agreements. You can attract investors. It can actually, incline to support whatever business structure that you'll be having. Okay, another thing is your long-term planning. By creating a business entity again, that's, we're just talking about benefits of putting up a business entity, right? So, owners such as you can establish a clear structure for the future growth and expansion of your podcast. So, this will allow easier succession planning. I know, right? It's going to be, we're talking about heavy, what do you call this, terminologies right now. But once you get bigger into this business entity that you put up regarding podcasting, you leveled up, mga kaibigan. So you might be bringing partners into the scene already, or you may even think of selling the podcast, whatever, because it has value already. Now, when you say it has value, it is actually it has assets already. So that's what it means, okay? Now, I've been talking about business entity. So, what type of business entity should you create on your podcast business? Well, this is going to be a tough decision for you because there's so many or countless different types of business entities that you can actually think of, And I would want to go, maybe that's going to be another topic next time, but that's going to be for you to decide because the specific legal requirements or maybe tax implications, that depends on the business entity type that you'll be having because this may vary depending on the jurisdiction where you operate, And then, of course, as I've always been saying, seek guidance to lawyers or business advisors to make sure that when you put up your business entity, you're going to be compliant with the local laws. Okay? So we talked about liability protection a while ago. Your content, whatever you would want to put out there, right? Because this is going to be a content that could probably potentially hurt other people, because there's always going to be a chance, right? Especially if you're giving out maybe topics like health topics or medical information. There might be some people that's going to end up being hurt because of the information that you put out there, right? So that's the reason why I want to talk about liability protection. If someone gets hurt trying to implement whatever you did say on your podcast, they might have a valid lawsuit claim. That's what I'm saying. That's why you need to have a liability protection. So one of the primary factors is the level of personal liability protection that you desire. Like an LLC, a limited liability companies, right? Or a corporation. These things can provide a separation between personal and business liabilities. This will be able to shield you or your personal assets from the business debts and legal issues. That's why I want to talk to you guys first about liability protection if you would want to level up. Okay? Another thing, ownership and management structure. So once you put up your podcast, you leveled up already, you will want to consider how you want to structure ownership and management within your business. Because different entities have, it varies. They have a lot of options when you own a business, such as a single ownership, LLC, partnership, corporation, where these things there's going to be some shareholders and directors. And you have to determine the roles and the responsibilities of everybody involved in your business, because that depends again on what structure that you will be choosing. So we talked about tax implication a while ago. So taxation is very important. This is very important for you to consider and to evaluate because different entities have different tax treatments. For example, some taxes are based on individual tax rate of the owners, right? And while the others, they could actually face some corporate taxes. So even how you report your taxes can also change depending on the type of entity that you'll be having. Because now, tax laws can be complex. So it's always a good idea to consult again with tax advisors or professionals, because before you even go to any decisions. The biggest thing that you need to do today is to start it right, get the right people to guide you before you even get into your final decision. It's always best to outsource your tax matters to expert, if you would be asking me. Okay? So another thing in podcasting, mga kaibigan, if you want to make this as a business, you have to look at the administrative requirements of having a podcast. You have to understand the administrative obligations and the formalities associated with each entity that you'll be ending into. Because some entities like corporations, this may require more formalities, such as you need to hold an annual meetings, maintaining corporate records. You would want to have filing a regular reports. While LLC, generally, it has fewer administrative requirements. Consider the level of administrative burden that you are comfortable with before you actually select an entity. Okay, I hope that actually is clear to you guys, right? Now we're talking about leveling up, right? Funding and growth potential. So you would want to consider how you plan in funding your business when you're looking at growth and expansion already. So if you anticipate seeking external fund from an investor, a corporate structure will always be more suitable, because on a corporate structure, mga kaibigan, it will allow you to issue some shares to future investors. But for entities like LLCs, this may have limitations in attracting investors or issuing stocks. Again, that's corporation if you would want to go as big as that, right? So you would want to consider as well the entity, which allows for easy addition or removal of partners or shareholders in case of some changes that's going to happen in your business in the future. Okay? So another thing that you would want to think when you would want to create podcasting as a business is the industry and the professional requirements. Because some industries may have specific legal entity requirements or regulation. For example, certain professions like law firms, or medical practices, they may need to operate as specific types of entities. So you would want to research, all of these industry-specific regulations or licensing requirements that may impact what entity you're going to be putting up, right? So now we were talking about how to build your podcasting business, right? You would want to also think, even though you're just in the beginning, the future exit strategy. Because at some point, mga kaibigan, you might even think of selling it already. Selling your business that you made it so big already that you would want to sell it. Or maybe not even sell it. You may want to do some mergers with someone else or some companies. Or maybe you would want to pass it on to your successor. So if you think that way, you will look into your goals, choose the type of business structures that allows you for all of those transitions and transfers. You would want to know today what certain entities or business entity that will be able to offer those flexibilities, mga kaibigan, and then of course the attractiveness to potential buyers already, because in the beginning you already know when your exit strategy is going to happen, right? So there's going to be a lot of business entities in the United States. I think one of our content before, we were talking about all of these business entities. I'm just going to be enumerating it to you. We're not going to dive down into that. Maybe we can repeat that in another episode next time. I mentioned to you about sole proprietorship, the partnership, the corporation, the limited liability company, the S corporation. These are all the business entities that you would want to consider learning and then find out which best suit for your business plan. Okay? So now we're talking about business entity, establishing it, and all of these things that surrounds it. The next thing that you would want to talk about when you look at podcasting as a business, well, you have to establish, a business budget. Again, I use the word business budget because definitely this is separate from your personal budget. now you would want to make sure that you have your business budget, because creating content, like a business, it just means that you have to make sure that you have used a thoughtfully created budget, a budget that will ensure that you're smart about your spendings, how you're going to be funding the operation, because this will keep your business afloat, and it will help you produce the best content possible. Now, are you going to need some cash? Definitely you need some cash, right? You'll need some cash up front to buy the right equipment. So do you have the right equipment? Well, some podcasts, if you're just startup, that's okay. You don't need much. There's a startup kit to start a podcast. Maybe you will not need too much, but everything, before you even dive down into that, you might want to research on what are maybe research to the complete equipment guide that you will be needing to start a podcast. You should also check out some reading materials that will give you some recommendation, about what microphones you're going to be using, should I what do you call this? Look at or read at a DIY podcastings, right? Or how do I create a live streaming? Set up a live streaming kind of topics that you would want to read about. Audio recording equipment, or what are the best cameras for podcasting and content creation? Look at me in this camera. Just kidding. Now, you also would like to consider how much it will cost for you to produce each episode. What's your costing, right? Oh, no, I'm just using my computer. Oh, yeah. You also use your electricity. You also use your air conditioning. There's going to be a lot of things that you never thought that it's part of the costing of, producing an episode. Does your content have any expenses? Think about that. If I do this content, will it create an expense? So in a sport news, you may need to buy a license to use an audio, or for broadcasting, something like that. You might want to look at this, because that's going to be part of your business budget. So another thing, if you intend to hire people to help you create your content, or even edit your video for you, you'll need to understand how much you're going to be paying them. Maybe in the early stages of your business, maybe, not too much, but eventually it will grow, and you have to look at it that way. So you also need to consider how much you spend per episode now to promote. See? So another one was just to create the episode. Now, to promote the episode is another question. How much you're going to be willing to buy ads for this podcast? Because it will not going to go viral automatically. You have to put a lot of effort in the beginning. You have to create this momentum up until, it goes viral. So how much are you willing to pay for sponsorships? You might hire a virtual assistant, just for, to spend a few hours emailing or influencing people, all of this one, even designing artwork is going to cost you. So you have to create a reasonable budget, and you have to stick to this budget, because this is important. This is a very important part of being consistent in delivering your content through podcasting. You might want to think about this one too, how fast you'll be spending your cash, how quick it will be. Before you know it, you might run out of money before you even build a reliable audience, or captured market for your podcast. Now, paying taxes, we talked about taxes a while ago as a content creator. Well, in a business, taxes is always going to be a big topic, So before, you listen to some advices, you might want to do your research first, and then go to some professionals already who can give you great advices about taxes. So you have the reason why I'm saying that you have to do your research first, so you can actually make a pool of questions. Once you sit down with tax experts, you can actually just share with them what you actually gathered, and they can guide you accordingly. So, let's just be clear that in this episode that you're listening, right, we're not tax advisors here, right, or tax specialists. That's why I always make sure that you guys go out there and seek for professional advices. So this is not a specific advice that I'm telling you. It's just an idea of where you can actually start, and be able to understand what the tax environment is all about. So, and then, hire somebody to guide you. I always recommend that, those people who are expert on this one. Again, you should always consult professionals who understand, especially your jurisdiction. So, how much do content creator pays in taxes? Well, the amount of taxes content creators pay definitely, it varies. This is actually based on factors such as location, income level, business structures. Content creators typically are self-employed people. So they are self-employed people in their own jurisdiction. So they actually rather either they're not being paid through an employer. That's the reason why it's important for content creators to consult again with tax professionals, right? So they will know the specific tax obligations or even tax advantages on their own circumstances. Okay, so again, we discussed about those taxes. So what expenses can creators deduct from taxes? This depends again on your jurisdiction. Again, in podcasting or hosting, there's going to be some marketing expenses. There's going to be some insurances that we talked about, software tools, the licenses, the cost of goods or the equipment that you bought. This can be some items that can be deducted. Again, talk to your tax advisors. Okay. So now another question here is, what happens if the business reports a loss? Well, sometimes, you may have a year where your business cost is more than what you've actually earned. Well, this is common on people who are starting up, right? During the early years of their business. In fact, if you spend more than you make, you won't even have any tax liability. In some cases, you can carry those losses over several years until it balances out. So, you would want to have a guidance too on about how to keep your books. Bookkeeper is a good experts that can guide you on how to maintain your books, right? So again, we're just going back to the business of podcasting. Does a podcast count as a business? It's always going to be a yes, because a podcast a podcast can be considered as a business, but again, not all of them. That depends again on you. Well, if it's a hobby, then it's a hobby, right? But if you want to go to level up, then you go level up. But if you want to level up, you run it as a business, then run it as a business. Because many podcasters treat their podcast that has commercial ventures. So now, if that's the case, there's going to be some, you can actually monetize it already. How do you monetize that? Advertising, sponsorship, merchandise sales, or other revenue streams that you can actually add into your podcasting as a business. So running your show or any content that you have, and then you run it like a business. Well, nowadays, is actually smart, because most jurisdictions, it allows businesses to write off expenses. So you can often carry those expenses across several years, which means that this year's expenses can reduce your tax liability in a future year. So you would want to again talk to your tax consultants about this one, right? So, but of course, operating as a business, it just means that you have to comply with the laws and regulations of your state or your jurisdiction. And there are laws that will actually govern all of these copyrights, taxes, record keepings, and a lot more. So it's worth noting as well, mga kaibigan, that some podcasts may be purely personal. It's also actually everybody, maybe, if I'm not mistaken, they all started this purely personal or hobby-oriented, without even getting the intention or doing or having the intention of, generating profit, just because I just love talking or I just like creating content, right? So in this case, if that's you, you may not even consider it as a business in the strictest sense of business. Okay? So, mga kaibigan, if you are content creation, again, that depends on you, how you will be actually putting it out there, a hobby or a business. Now, do you need a trademark for your podcast name? So you need to have a name, right? So trademarking your podcast, that depends again on specific circumstances. Trademark registration, they offer legal protection and brand recognition. If you don't know that, right? So connect with a company that actually helps you build your trademark, because it may not be even necessary for all of us, but again, on the next level, you might want to consider that factor, because you have future plans of expansion. You would want to, you would want to have brand recognition. In my case, in my toolbox, I want that brand recognition, right? Yeah. So, but then again, there's going to be some potential risk of using other similar names. So you might want to look at it. You would want to have a unique name because there might be some, potential risks for those names that are similar to others, especially if the other party has value already. So but again, that's what you call branding. So if you want to establish a strong brand of your podcast, you want to monetize it through, again, what are those? Sponsorship and, you might want to prevent others from using similar name as well. See, if your trademark gets bigger, you would want to protect it. So, but protecting it, trademarking it, definitely it will involve costs. And there's going to be administrative work attached to it. So again, I'm going to tell you, consult with a trademark attorney, for personal advices on this one. Okay? So, again, we were talking about, legalities. So, can you be sued for your content? Yeah, it is possible that you can be sued to the content that you create. As a creator, you have a responsibility to ensure that your content, it does not violate any laws, or it actually does not infringe any intellectual property rights. It doesn't defame individuals or could actually cause harms in any way. Always remember that, mga kaibigan, right? So if your podcast contains defamatory statements or copyright infringements or privacy violations or other actionable content, you could actually face some legal consequences. So it is actually very crucial to exercise caution. You conduct thorough research. You would want to obtain necessary permissions, and you would want to consider obtaining liability insurance to mitigate the risk of potential lawsuits. Because you're going to be going out there, public is going to be looking at you, so you would want to make sure that all your bases are covered. So speaking about that, of course, always consult an expert. Remember, mga kaibigan, it is advisable that to consult with lawyers, right? Or accountants or business advisors that fully understand the legal and financial implications of starting a business in your area. So it's better to spend a few dollars today getting that right advice from an expert than losing everything because you actually made a very bad decision. Wow, mga kaibigan, I hope I was able to give you an insight of how to, how podcasting can be a business to you. And look at it, right? It may be a hobby for you today, and it can be a business for you tomorrow. All right, mga kaibigan. Again, this is Enrico Pobre with another episode of In My Toolbox, mga kaibigan. Up until to our next episode next week, I'm signing off.